Everybody, today a super simple art journal tutorial that's great for beginners and cat lovers. It's part of the Napkin Journal series as well. Let's get started. So I'm using two napkins, this Be Different napkin with this lovely black cat. I used to have a black cat and this just reminded me of her. And this animal print napkin, I am trying to get the name of it and I will put it in the description box, but both of these are available at ninniesnapkins.com and there is a link in the description box. So first off, I've removed the excess 2 plies of napkin and I've rough cut out around the cat. And then I'm using my liner brush and water just to water cut around closely to the cat. And I do that for multiple images because at this time, I'm not sure if I'm going to use one or more. Now I'm gessoing my 9x12 Canson Mixed Media page because I plan on using the technique of removing paint through a stencil, and you need the paper to be sealed, and gesso will seal that. If I had another coat of or any kind of acrylic paint, that would also seal it. Just a reminder, there will be a full recap using my prompt and process cards at the end of this video. Now, because I went with the cat, I went through my Pet Talk sentiment pack and I picked the quote, "What am I doing with my lives?" And that made me think of numbers. So I grabbed this Ciaobella numbers stamp. It's brand new in my stash, and I'm going to stamp with black acrylic paint. I prefer using acrylic paint to ink to stamp. It gets somewhat darker and you get some added texture that you don't get when you ink it. I'm turning the number stamp this way and that way, and I'm absolutely loving this stamp, and I know this is going to become a fast favorite. This stamp is also available at Ninnie's Napkins, as were my sentiment packs. Now I grabbed this number scramble stencil from the Crafter's Workshop, and I want to stencil some of these numbers, and particularly I want the number 9 to show up, as in 9 lives, of course. So I'm putting that number 9 everywhere and hoping that when I decide on my composition that it is going to show. I'm using some dark bold colors here. Now I've chosen to go with a warm color scheme. These are colors yellow, orange, and red. And those colors were alluded to in those animal print and the cat napkin. I'm blending them with a makeup sponge right on the paper. And then when I have it still wet, I'm putting this Fantangle stencil on and pulling off the paint through the stencil. That's leaving kind of the white of showing. It kind of gives you a reverse stencil effect. And it's a quick, easy way to add maybe more subtle stamps. It's important that you remove the paint through the stencil while the paint is still wet. And you can see that very subtle patterning that's there. It's striped, kind of like the cat, leopard, tiger stripes. That's what I was going to. It gave kind of that tropical wild print. Now I'm cutting out a couple of the parts of this napkin. Here's the tiger print, and I'm not sure if I'm going to use the tiger print or the leopard print, so I'm cutting out both. and playing a little bit with my composition now. I've got the sentiment, I've got the focal image. I'm just seeing which direction I want to go, what looks best. Now, when I put the leopard print on there, I liked how the circular part of the leopard looked with the eyes of the cat. And I noticed that after I had taken pictures of both and looked at them. So that helped me make my decision. So I'm going to put the animal print in the middle and these cats. This one is pondering, what is he doing with his lives? And he's thinking. Then I have this stencil called Circle Jumble, also from the Crafter's Workshop. And it has some circles in the middle and it has spikes around it. The spikes look like the Fantangle stencil and the circles go with the leopard print and the cat eyes. And I'm adding a little darker red to the background here. And I've mixed red, alizarin crimson to be precise, with the orange to get a kind of in between tone. Now I'm just marking off where this part of the napkin is going to go because I noticed that I can see through it and I don't want to see any of this pattern through it. So what I'm doing here is just putting a coat of gesso, just enough to knock back especially the dark stamping that's there. And then I will glue the animal print part of the napkin on top of that with my fluid matte medium. And that's what I'm applying here. You can see that the animal print stayed true. I put a coat of the fluid matte medium on top. Once it's dry, I flip it over and cut off the excess. It's easiest to see what's extra by flipping it over. And now I need to decide on the final orientation. I have this sentiment which I blew up from the original Pet Talk, which I do have a video that shows exactly how you can resize my sentiment packs to make them custom for whatever page you're doing. And then I decide I want to blow it up even more. I want it to make the sentiment to be a bit bolder. So now I'm cutting it apart and playing with the orientation. So off camera, I'm going to continue to cut this apart and play with where I want to set it up. Now that I'm happy with everything, I'm ready to glue down all my elements. I flip over the napkin focal image, flip it back, put some fluid medium underneath, and then on top. Is anybody noticing the problem that I'm having here? I'm going to show you how to fix it in the next segment here. And I've placed these where I could still see those 9s showing up because it ties in with my sentiment and I didn't want to cover all of them up. So that had part influenced where exactly I was putting my elements. Now, do you see how the stamping on the background shows through the eyes of the cat? So what I'm doing here is I put a coat of gesso on the eyes, and then I come in with Naples yellow and yellow oxide, then some orange. And I'm looking at the napkin and trying to duplicate the colors that are there. I then put a coat of gold on top just to make those eyes sparkle. To avoid that, I could have just put a little bit of gesso underneath where I was gluing the cat down once I decided, just like I did with the animal print. So you could avoid this step altogether if you do that. But I still recommend that you do a wash of gold on the eyes. They really do make them sparkle. I'm going to splatter in a bit, but before I do that, I decided I wanted to do a few other things first. And I'm going to shade using the floating acrylic technique in my angle brush, going around the outside. Now, this is a great technique for you to learn, and I have a video. You can search in my channel for the floating acrylic or shading video, and it should pop up, and I teach step by step this technique. I'm absolutely loving this page. It is so adorable. I hope you do too. Then I'm going to shade around the sentiment. This makes it stand out. Just a reminder that I do dry between every step. Now I'm taking my black Posca pen and just adding a black border on the edge of the animal print and around the sentiment. Posca pens, when you first put them on, you can remove them if you do that before they're dry, but once they're dry, they are permanent. And I promised you that I was going to splatter. I didn't notice the whiskers, so I grabbed the gold paint that I've thinned and put in a fine line applicator bottle, and I am tracing the whiskers. And that really makes the whiskers stand out. It also gives a little bit of dimension. Please subscribe to my channel if you're not already a subscriber, and select the option to get notified of upcoming videos. Every once in a while, you have to go and redo that, take it off and redo it. So here is the finished page. Warm color scheme with bold black. So I used the napkins. That was the starting page. They're the focal image and they're part of the background. I applied the block and blend technique, and we are in the warm color scheme, and these are analogous colors. They're next to each other on the color wheel, so no worry about making mud. I removed paint through a stencil, and that Fantangle stencil. Then I stamped with acrylic paint, black acrylic paint, and I did some more stenciling to get more pattern. I added the sentiment after adjusting the size to fit the composition and the feel of the page. I edged the page and around the sentiment, and I used the Posca pen to add a little bit of line work. I splattered the whole page with gold, and I'm done. Thanks so much for joining me. Give me a thumbs up, leave me a comment, ask me a question. And until next time, go get creative.